Good morning. Well, yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How y'all doing? Welcome to another session of the Akiba Land Roots and Culture African History class. Welcome back to another session, another moment, another experience of Akiba Land Roots and Culture African History class. I am the African. I am the host. I gladly invite you in. I let you know all the time I am not the expert. I am what we call in our community the seeker. And I share what I learn in terms of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding with you. As we begin, we are to, remember, be aware that we are leaving the first month of the year. So hopefully you've sat down and used the first 30 days to plan out your strategic route through life. What are you going to achieve during 22? And as we study African history, we know we're going to get with African history and African spirituality class that comes right after this. We're going to get some self awareness even more. We're going to go get some self discovery even more. And then we're going to focus on that self realization where we participate in self determination. Yes, everything is about self as a people, not just as an individual, but you do it for the sake of building closer as a people, closer and stronger as a community, closer to who God would have us to be. That's what this purpose and that's what it's all about. Because we are focused at a Kibaland, we are definitely focused. Let me get this right. Here we go with the rise of the African, which is our social media Pan African movement where we're trying to bring black youth, black parents, black individuals who wholeheartedly believe in the liberation of black people. I got some technical issues going on over here, and so we're going to try to fix it. And so we ask you to come on in, sit down, and learn. Now, this particular venture is the World of Akiba Land venture, but I want you to know that African history class was not necessarily. Wow, today was the day that it was moved from being community charged. A brother blessed me with the information that I'm about to teach on our, that's what I was supposed to set up, on the People's Library. And we have a library of no, 6 terabytes of African history. It's our encyclopedia, it's our Wikipedia, it's everything you can think of there. And we also utilize world YouTube University. Please check out Home Team. Every time I get here, I get flustered because there's so much data that has to come out naturally, right? Because it just flow out because there's so much reading and so much studying. And I try to get relaxed enough to remember, but there's some things that I forget. But we want to make sure that you check out Home Team on YouTube. I go to that page, I pull a lot. Now, some of the data today is not from that particular page. Some of the data today, of course, you'll get some information coming off of the People's Library, but then there was another website that I found that gave me some more information on the topic that we're going to discuss today. But we want to always make sure that we understand that this is about the rise of the African, the rise of the of who God called you to be, that inner warrior in you, that inner warrior, that God warrior, that people warrior, a warrior for your heritage, your culture, your intellect, your spirituality. We fighting for it all in a land that has us fighting for our civil rights. That's ridiculous. So let's claim our spiritual awareness to join us with this other fight of our civil rights. Now, we always ask you to get an Afrocation, right? I'm gonna come up with a design that describes and shows the Afrocation, right? But we always ask you to get that Afrocation. An Africation is that education from an African perspective, meaning that everything that we're learning in an oppressive society is teaching us from their view, their point of view. So we don't get to see ourselves the way we're supposed to see ourselves in God, the way we're supposed to see each other. That's the importance of studying our history, to see how well who we really are, not according to what society is telling us to be and what we have adopted from a society who really didn't want us here. So they're going to doctrinate us with their understanding of who they want us to be. Was that something? And so studying African history wakes us up to the awareness of ourselves, our divinity, inner divinity, spiritually, and then consciously, you need to know our history as a people In order for you to be the best you, when you know what your roots are, that tree with strong roots bear great fruits. And the fruit would be whatever you accomplish in your life. It's on behalf of the roots that you come from, right? And so to take a lapse in what we've been talking about, or recap. Now we're always, when we're looking at society and culture, we're and African history and African cultures and civilizations, we're studying culture. And culture will have multiple facets to it. And so that's the attitudes, beliefs, language, customs, rituals, behaviors, faith, religion, food, and drama, art, music. You name it. It's how it's expressed, how life is expressed through you. And then we take a look at what we created in terms of the first civilizations, which is what is civilization? A complex society of five characteristics: advanced cities, specialized workers, complex institutions, recording, and advanced technology. We have the most advanced technology in the world, and everything that you have right now comes off of African technology, comes off of African mathematics, African genius. There's nothing coming out of technology today that does not come from the African civilizations in which we came from. And that's what we're trying to get you to connect to and experience with inside yourself. We want to also let you know, as we continue, we want you to support all of our programming, all of our programming, because all of that creates that experience, which is Sunday, Inspirational Sunday, Akiba Inspirational Sundays, which comes on at 12 noon. And we have the African Speaks on Tuesdays. We have Afro Stream on Thursday night at 7. And then we have African History right after African Spirituality right after this class. Now, one of the things we always invite, every week I invite you to come on to the show and send me an email, and we're going to start sending out the email blasts to welcome people into the stream. Now, what's happening? Well, I'm gonna show you something. All right, because what we said was we're gonna set up a scenario where it's a dialogue phase, and I'm just showing you. I'm just gonna be sharing with you what is. So now this is a youth meeting that we're having about the development of our program. I can't be there because I'm teaching class, and I told them I couldn't be there because I'm teaching class. Well, they're gathering together, but this is what it's supposed to look like. And so this will be us, me giving the class. On the other side, and this is actually live, right? Live time, and he's talking, right? On the other side will be the class and the students and the parents, or anybody sitting in, want to sit in and have a direct dialogue. I have them on mute. They don't even know they're here because I cut the camera off, so they don't even know they're here. Shh. But this is how we're going to give the classes. All right, and so we're connecting multiple means of technology to produce an experience that you've never seen before. Yes, an experience that you've never seen before, and that's what we do here at World of Akibaland, giving you that Afrocation in an experience that works with the technology that you live in. And so as we talk about the technologies that we have, let's talk about the technologies of uh, of the Nile River, which is a recap. I had to double back, right? In the recap, what we talk about is what the Nile gave to the community. What the Nile gave, what God gave as a resource. What did God give as a resource for the first empires, the first kingdoms, the first levels of civilization, where they created art, science, mathematics, astronomy, everything, every discipline, you name it, cream off the Nile first, and then it branched off to the different areas. The Nile, you have top of the Egypt, and in the middle you had the Kush kingdom. They were trading with everybody because all the resources came off that land. And so to show you how big, and we're talking about Kush today, right? But there's a certain area of Kush that we were talking about. And so when we talked about, bringing Kush in, you see Kemet, which is another term for Egypt, right? And then you see Kush, the size of Kush. Now, How did Kush get that big and Egypt that small, but all you heard about was Egypt? Kush was the first empire and the best empire, and it mimicked. Egypt mimicked Kush, and a lot. And historians, if you've been a part of class, recap. Historians say that a lot of the Egyptian kings, queens, and even people who lived there came from Kush. They migrated up, or they migrated from all over to be a part of it because they could hear about the great land. A lot of people came to Kush. A lot of people went to Egypt. They had the choice. It was a mixture of peoples, right? And so now the importance, as we move on and we talk about the importance of history, I want to replay this video because it this video when I put it up, I wasn't gonna replay it, but what this does is shows, will it recap? Shows us that they've hid a lot of information to us in so many different ways, and then they doctrinated our minds so that we see ourselves in a particular light. We want to make sure that we diffuse that light. I don't know if you remember this one.
This audience is a very interesting group because of the differences. It really bothers me when I talk to all-white groups because, folks, there's no such thing as an all-white group. You all have the same great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent back there 280,000 years ago, and she was a black female.
Why the maps? Why the maps?
Well, because people who are racist, in this country we're all racist. White folks are all racist. We don't understand where it comes from. You can't cure it if you don't recognize that you have it. We all are infected with racism. We are taught to be racist in the schools. And here's just one example. Will you hold this up, please? How many of you have ever seen a map that looked like this before? How many of you have ever seen this map?
Seen that map.
Yeah. Isn't this the map that you use K through 16 in the United States of America? Now, folks, look at this map. According to your social studies teacher, what is the equator?
Right.
An imaginary line where?
Yeah.
Around the center of the earth. Then if this map is correct, then the equator must be here, and Chicago has a tropical climate. Now, folks, this is the map that we use in the schools. Look where the United States is, in the middle of the world, right? Now, here's the USSR, which is no more, of course, Mongolia, China, Africa, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Now, look over here. USSR, Mongolia, China, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Twin Indias here. We have 2 Indias. Did you know that? Now, people, this is a flat-out lie. Look at the size of Greenland and the size of South America. According to your social studies teachers, what were continents? Largest land masses on the face of the earth, right? Now, do you know the continents? Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, Europe, North America, and South America. Did I say Greenland? Well, Greenland isn't a continent, but it's a huge landmass according to this map, right? The map is a flat-out lie, people. If you read the legend on the map, here it says, in fact, South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. Now, look at this map. The equator on this map is down here. All the white countries are larger than they should be, and all the countries of people of color are smaller than they should be. This is a visual image that teaches children a lie. In order to make this map anywhere near accurate, you have to take this over here and put it here like this. Now, well, can somebody hold that? Can you hold that down there, somebody? Are you a somebody?
Sally is a somebody.
Okay,
yeah.
Sally's a somebody. There. Now, take a look at the difference. Does that give you a different visual image of the importance of the United States? People, the way you use things like this, teaching aids like this, are what make you and I racist. We were taught that this is the way the world looks. It's a flat-out lie.
If you have children going to school and they're seeing this map,
Right.
they're seeing a distortion
Yeah.
of size, of shape, location, of importance. If they're looking at this map, they're seeing a distorted, shape distorted, but size and location and importance makes sense. This makes no sense.
Right.
On that map, Alaska is bigger than Mexico. On this map, Mexico is bigger than Alaska. And look at Canada on this map. Look at that thing. That much is map. Look at Canada on a properly constructed map.
Yeah.
Do you think that's important?
It's like a world of difference, actually.
A world of difference. That's a good thought. Look at there. Look at South America and compare it to Greenland on this map.
Right. It's almost like we're teaching kids that we're bigger, we're better.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. That's exactly what this map. That's exactly what this map is supposed to do.
Right.
What we have in this country and call education is indoctrination.
So why do they do that? I don't understand.
Why? Because the Pope commissioned Mercator to make a map that shows the spread of Christianity. So all the countries in which there are predominantly white people are larger than those in the southern part of the world.
If we
Now, we understand that we have been given information that is not true. We understand that we've been given an identity that is not ours. We understand that the world teaches the other areas of the world about our lack of participation in the development of the human race. That's the importance of understanding and learning and knowing the true part of African history. So when I started studying, and I'll tell you this really, because I was creating a curriculum for today and develop a deeper desire and need to always go deeper into African study. And so when we were taking a look at Kemet and Kush and the development
this map in school,
wait,
it
not
would
that one,
give children a
this one, and development of African societies. What blew my mind was understanding that Kush came first and Egypt came second. What? Kush came first and Egypt came second, and Egypt got a lot of their likeness in terms of culture, tradition, heritage from Kush. But they don't teach you about Kush because of the positioning of Kush. It's down lower inside the continent, and they couldn't okey doke us that Kush was not in Africa. They okey doked us for years, talking about Egypt and all the movies you see Egyptians or light skin or white folks, and you don't even hear about Africa or the influence of Kush, which is or what Egypt called them Ethiopians. That whole area was like Ethiopia, the land of the burnt faces. Now, last week we talked about because we talked about Nile, we talked about Kush as a kingdom, then we talked about was it monarchies, matriarchs. There we go, matriarch kingdoms in Kush, and we talked about the scarred eye queen, right? And well, where'd she go? There we go. And we talked about it. And so we're not going back in it. Yeah, I know. Y'all was like, oh, did I? If y'all missed that one and the way that came in, like, whoa, we like that. Yes. We talked about the African queens and the fact that there have been hundreds and hundreds of years in African society where queens ran the empires, where they were the warriors on side of the male warriors, and they were even more vicious than brothers because they're fighting for what they gave birth to. You see that? Wow, that's a whole different thing when you have women. And so today we're going to take a look at the kings. And then if we have enough time and it looks like we clicking, because we might just get past the kings, so that means the kings and then the armies at the king's or queen's hand, right? Now Kush was advanced when it come to leadership because it didn't matter the gender. Were you royal and had enough to lead? That's what they cared about. Can you truly lead? Not just because you have a title like we think around here. You got to have a title to do something. No. Did God call you? And what does your leadership lead us to? Is your leadership leading us to an understanding of who we are in God? And so we talked about that battle at war, and we're going to go back to about King Paradamipo. Well, I can't say his name, right? But King Pi, I call it for short. And how he took over Egypt for the sake of realigning Egypt back with the Mayat. And if you missed last week, your Mayat is the balance. The balance. They said the king, I almost came off my tongue. King Pi said, and then it was Queen of Monarias and King Pi. Oh, it's going to come out for me. But the Mayat is the balance and harmony with man, God, and nature. And when Kemet kept getting off, Kush had to always step in Now let's look at the most famous. We saw the most famous queen last week. Let's look at the most famous king. And then, if we have time, we'll check out the army of the kingdom that ruled the earth for a very long. We don't say the earth, but we brought everything. This kingdom brought everything to the planet, shared it with everything and everybody, until Rome took over Egypt and slowly came down, and you had entities soaked down into Africa. Why? Because they wanted to control the trade routes of the Nile. Greed. Not because they had a better technology, better community, better anything. No, because we were a communal people. We shared everything. They wanted to take charge because of greed. Because we, as a people who lived in a communal environment, needed for nothing, and if we had extra, we shared it. We took as we gave as we were able, and took as we had need. There were no fighting. There was no evil. It's again, if Kush had the power to rule Egypt, it didn't rule Egypt because it was taking control of the people. It was to align the people back to the Mayat. That's a different understanding of war when it comes to African reality. Let's take a look at the king, one of the kings, one of the famous kings.
The conquering of Egypt by King Pianki of Kush was certainly one of the most significant moments in African history. A Kushite occupation brought in a sort of Renaissance period, according to what some intellectuals might say. So how did King Pianki accomplish this task? Well, today, I wanted to give you a summarized blow by blow about how King Pianki founded the Empire of Kush and the 25th dynasty of Egypt. All the details of King Pianki's military campaign will be taken exclusively from his own words, which we have access to via his victory stela. For those who may not know, after King Pianki conquered Egypt, he wrote down how he did it, and so this video will be a classic example of the victor getting to write the story. Throughout the retelling of King Pianki's victory stela, I'll try my best to say the native names as it may have been referred to back then. We can't know for sure the exact names or pronunciation, but we have a general idea, so please bear with me. Keep in
Now, what I want to say is when he wrote down his own history of what was accomplished. So when you sit down and you say, we said one of the things about cultures is that they keep record. We don't usually get to hear about what our kings from the continent of Africa had to say about life and their rulership and their leadership and how they did things. No, we get it now. There's nothing wrong with studying how other countries or civilizations viewed Africa. But it's always a beautiful thing when we can have information coming from the history of Africa itself, the written history. A lot of people say it's all oral. Well, this one wasn't all oral. Right? And that is a means of communication in terms of oral communication. African spirituality class, you had to speak a lot. Like if I wanted to get permission, I couldn't go just to my father. I had to speak to my brother, who spoke to the other brother who was the oldest, to go speak to father, right? Or if you're speaking to, even in rituals, that's why you study both, because we want to understand the spirit of the people that created the empires. Even in rituals, sometimes you go to when you're doing a ritual, you go to your mother to contact your mother's mother, to contact your mother's mother's mother, right? So there was always oral conversation, because we had to speak in our prayer and speak to our ancestors and speak to each other. However, they also wrote some things down. Let's keep going.
mind, this is a summary of King Pianki's victory stela. I'll first introduce what was going on in the period and then dive in. So let's begin. During this time in the Nile Valley, around 744 BC, Kemet was facing a time of division and foreign invasion known to us today as the Third Intermediate Period. The entire country was fragmented as various native rulers and Libyan princes struggled for power throughout the delta and the north. Sensing his time had come, Prince Tefnak sought to take advantage of the division and become the sole ruler of the Nile. Tefnak quickly quickly begins to form unions amongst the various nomes or city-states of the Delta, war was obviously imminent. King Paenki, upon hearing this news and being encouraged by some to take control, finally decided to act. He apparently grew wary of the religious corruption of Kemet. From his victory stela, King Paenki was a very pious man and passionate about winning back the glory of Nile Valley civilization. He truly believed that Amun had chosen him to do so. One nation under Kush, if you will. King Paenki set his sights on conquering Waset, but before the advancement of his army, he ordered his men to put on the finest linen and cleanse themselves in a river so that they would be purified before Amun and fight in the shadow of his sword. In another address, he ordered.
Before we go there, you see how he prepares the war. Everything is divine. Everything is wait, we got to bless ourselves. You know, we're gonna make sure that he felt like I was called by the creator to bring back balance. One nation under Kush, and then not, and then you know, under Kush, because when you're dealing with the issue of God in African spirituality, if you come to the African spirituality class, you realize for them everything was God. There was nothing, no relationship, no interaction that was separate from the experience of the higher power. And you have one overarching God, but then you also, you know, polytheism. You have a lot of polytheism there. And again, if you miss an African spirituality class, come and get it. Now, of course, we say that Africans created all levels of religion: monotheism, polytheism, and animism, where you have smaller deities. But everything was done not out of a need of greed, because he could see the greed, and he knew that that was not who Africans were supposed to be or called to be. So he said, you know what? Yeah, I'm tired of this. It's time for us to correct and bring life back into balance, and realize what they said, that Kemet was under attack of multiple different foreign individuals. And so they said, yeah, let's, because again, they're trying to control the blessing of the Nile. The blessing of the Nile. Let's continue.
His men to not only fight nobly, but to only fight during daylight, and curiously, he demanded that his army announce to the enemy when to expect attack. This bizarre order by the Kushite king may seem odd, but given the social climate of the Nile Valley during this time, King Paenki actually gave his men a tremendous advantage. He instilled in his army a unique confidence, giving his warriors a sense that victory had already been divinely ordered, a powerful psychological tool that the fragmented Delta rulers had not possessed. The Kushite army proceeded to praise King Paenki and sailed down the Nile in their warships, arriving at Waset. King Paenki at this time was still in Kush. The Kushites found
Sailing down the Nile in the warships. Sailing down the Nile in their own warships. So wait a minute, they were seamen? Ain't that something? So when you talked about, when you start talking about, we got to travel throughout the seas way before most people even thought about it. Understand where it comes from. This is the first empire, major African empire, coming out of the continent that blessed everybody. And they said they sailed down the Nile with their warships. Let's continue. Very advanced.
many ships coming upstream against them, bearing every valiant man of the Northland, all equipped with weapons of war. The Kushites rushed against them and made a great slaughter that day, the number dead being unknown. Some ships were utterly destroyed while others were captured. After this great victory, the Kushites entered Waset and continued on land with the intent of marching toward Nunusut. His army passed Kemenu, as Namlot, the ruler there, previously claimed loyalty to Kush. Tefnek's united forces of the Delta met King Paenki's forces near Nenensut. To the surprise of the Kushite warriors, Namlot was discovered betraying their majesty, joining forces with Tefnek. Once again, from the words of King Paenki himself, it seems as though there were pitched battles on land and the river. In both environments, Kush was victorious, defeating the coalition of the Delta rulers. Many were slaughtered and ships captured once more. Namlot happened to escape and go up the Nile back to Kamenu. When news reached King Paenki of those who escaped, including Namlot, the Kushite ruler was furious. Then his majesty raged because of it, like a panther. In his rage, King Paenki resolved to join the battle himself and went down the Nile to Kamenu with his personal army. The Kushite army, hearing that their majesty was not pleased, rushed to take the city of Per-Meged.
They said when they realized the enemy's escape, he went with his personal army. And so when we start studying the quality of the Kush army, and we look at his person, and then just think about the concept of his personal army, it's time for us to go to war. Now the king is coming. I sent my soldiers, we won, but some of y'all got away. If the elite of the elite was there, nobody would have gotten away. Nobody gets away. So the personal army. So I want you to think of Wakanda and the kings, the quality of the king's personal army. So if the original army won and there was more battle to be done, and the king said, now I have to go with my personal army, sending his army first and then blessing the journey and letting them know that, look, we are holy men in a holy war, bringing about the Mayat, which is the balance of man with nature and God. We're not allowing the foreigners to come into the continent of Africa and change way of life for us. We're about to take this over. Now I'm upset. I got you in check. King Army coming. Checkmate coming. Let's continue.
Taking it like a burst of water, sending word back to quell the anger of their great lord. Before dealing with Namlot, King Paenki, staying true to the precepts of his holy war, stopped in Waset to attend the Opet festival, a divine coronation ceremony intended to affirm a ruler's right to rule Upper and Lower Kemet. In a sense, it was at this moment that King Paenki spiritually conquered Kemet. From there, King Paenki continued forward, reaching Kamenu, joining with his army in the north, and laying siege to the city. After days of battle, we're not sure.
Now, I gotta stop. A ceremony that he went to on way to war that officially gave a particular king the right to rule over lower and upper kingdoms. Lower Kush, Upper Kush, Kemet. And he said, I just went through the religious ritual. Now, if you again enter into African spirituality class after this, to understand the spirit of a people that made them great. Those were sacred or beyond sacred, beyond sacred. If you don't have God's approval and you don't have the understanding the balance of the Maya, the balance that we have as a people to God, understand this is what made us communal. That's why when you see him marching to war, it wasn't on behalf of his own greed. And you'll see that when we start studying the armies of Kush and how they would say, be glad that we don't want the more than the land that we have outside of Africa, outside of Kush, or outside of Kemet. Be glad that we don't want no more land away from the Nile. We're sharing what we have. If we wanted to go into Rome, if we wanted to go into to what is now Palestine over there, is India, if they wanted to, the army was great enough that they could, but they said we don't feed our greed. We just want balance with God. And we're going to keep. Now, if you guys over there don't want balance with God, then that's fine for you. But don't come over here and bring your chaos. And so he had to be blessed. And he said the ritual, he said, he won the battle in spirit. Wow. Now, I'm a part of the liberation of black people, and we need one of them rituals where we know that we win the battle in spirit as we go to war. Not Sunday service. That's different. We give God praise on a regular way. Nobody else give God praise. But when you know you at war and you need God's blessing, that's a ritual. That's power. Why? Because we're trying to realign our world with the Maya. Balance man has with each other, balance man has with God, balance man has with nature. Let's continue it. King Painki.
Or why, but Namlot curiously sends his own wife outside the walls to negotiate with the Kushites, and surprisingly, King Paenki obliges by sending his royal women to negotiate. The records don't tell us what was said, but it would seem as though the prerogative of the royal Kushite woman was made clear. It was then that Kamenu threw itself upon its belly in submission, and in a stunning act, King Paenki forgives Namlot. This victory at Kamenu struck panic throughout the Nile Valley, and the city of Nenensut, along with other neighboring cities, surrendered without a fight, all offering tribute to King Paenki. Paenki then sent terms to Menefer, offering peace if they surrendered, and suggesting that all the princes could worship together in the temple. Menefer, however, refused King Paenki's generous terms and began building fortifications. Troops were sent out against the army of His Majesty King Paenki, and as night fell, the chief of Zau, Tefnak, arrived in Menefer with an elite army of 8,000 men. Strangely, after Tefnak led his troops into Menefer, he mounted a horse and went back to Zau. As King Paenki arrived in Menefer, he arranged battle formations of his ships and commanded his army. The attack on Menefer was ruthless. King Paenki tells us that Menefer was taken like a cloudburst, with countless people slain within the city. After his swift victory, the Kushite ruler began the process of purifying the city. He sent guards to protect the temples and consecrate the shrines of the gods.
Had to pause again. One, I want you to be aware, in terms of Kush, maybe and Egypt. It's a when you look at today in modern society, it's a crazy to believe. I see you, Shakesha. Thank you, love. Thank you, love. Thank you for Karima. I see you. One love to you, K Fiend. Y'all keep tuning in. This is what we do when we are trying to realign black people with the relationship with each other, with God, and with nature. This is what we do. I see you. I see you, girl. Thank you. Thank you. And so what we're trying to do is now we say I got off because I got happy because people saying what's up. I'm sorry. Royal women had the power and the ability to speak of global affairs. He said, send your wives to speak on global affairs. I can speak on behalf of my king. Why? Because they were respected and revered in terms of their ability to speak on the affairs of man, power, God, and government. What? But it's such a shock for a female to run this country. Why? Because there's no woman running the country. Man, please. Matriarchic regimes was you had hundreds of years of women running large empires in Africa, right? And we did Queen of Monteredas last week, and I also stated, if you didn't see it, go watch Queen Amina on Netflix. It's out there. And so then he said, once he conquered the area, he told the people that he conquered, yo, tell your princes to come on and let's cleanse ourselves. Let's cleanse ourselves and let us get right unto God. So we didn't conquer each other. When you look at war and war today is just ruthless for war, for the sake of resources don't care. That's European war. War on behalf of African people, it is to get us right back in line with God. And on behalf of African people before European influence. Let's get that. Because European influence changed the mindset of some men. At one point, oh, I see you, Shakesha. 12, 4, and 7, one love. Y'all talk about what you learn when this is over. We're talking about King Paenki and how well Egypt ruled, or not Egypt, or Kush ruled their area in time of Kush. And the fact that you are called, always called, to fight on God's behalf of the Mayat, and that spiritual and communal and interacting balance. Let's continue.
His Majesty then proceeded to the estate of Ptah, where his own purification ceremony was performed. The taking of Menefer had finally broken the rulers of the Delta. All the princes came directly to King Paenki to surrender in person, bearing great gifts in tribute and placing themselves on their bellies. As King Paenki continued north to Lunu, more purification ceremonies were performed, and King Asorkan IV came to the Kushite king to submit to him, or, as King Paenki puts it, to behold the beauty of his majesty. More and more native rulers and Libyan princes submitted to King Paenki personally. Perhaps aware of the forgiving nature of King Paenki, Tefnak, the leader of the anti-Kushite campaign, sent King Paenki a message, confessing that he could not look upon the face of his majesty because of shame, and requested of the Kushite ruler to send a messenger assuring him that he would not be killed on sight. King Paenki in his mercy obliges him.
Now, I had to stop for a second. I'm writing my notes. After war, to bring back the Mayat, all the princes of the lands that he had to reclaim who went away from the Mayat, which is the practice of balance under God, nature, and man. Right? Once they were defeated because he said they're going the right way, they're going the wrong way, we need to just get this right. What do they do? A purification ceremony. What? Wait a minute, does that happen? Does that happen in war in modern times during Europeans? Do they do that, or do they just go to war and once they win, they just win? No, they just win. Africans, we're not at war to hurt, really kill you or hurt you or damage you, even though they said it was ruthless. Because people are fighting what? To be individualistic and not communal. So that's this these wars were wars versus communalism and individualism. That's that good and evil. And even in this time, it's communalism versus individualism, good and evil. If you're communal, you're for the people. You're for God. You're for nature. If you're individualistic, you're for yourself and your own personal desire. So which one are you ruled by? Individualism or communalism? Can you share? Can you teach other people to share? Can you stand up for interaction of like that? And if somebody goes wrong, can you still, after they go wrong and realize, you know what, I'm wrong, it's okay, let's come and pray together. Let's get purified from the negative energy. And then he said everybody was in awe when they saw King Paenki laid down. Why? Because they saw a man of God. Woo! We don't talk about African culture as though that we had a connection, a deep connection with spirituality. They don't teach us that because they don't want you to know how powerful you were. You come from a powerful, powerful people with a powerful culture. He's just one king out of hundreds of kings, thousands of kings. He's one of the most famous ones in the Kush history. Let's continue. It's almost done.
And sends a messenger. Then Prince Tefnak goes to the temple where King Paenki was, surrenders, and cleanses himself by proclaiming loyalty to the ruler of Upper and Lower Kemet. King Paenki was satisfied by this and did not kill the Delta rulers who all mobilized against him. It would seem as though he stayed true to his original purpose, the spiritual and cultural purification of Kemet. With his conquering of Kemet completed, King Paenki took all the riches and sailed back to Kush with his heart gladdened and his men chanting in jubilation, O mighty ruler, O mighty ruler, Paenki, O mighty ruler.
Now, what, and we don't have enough time to go through the army because we're going to do that next week. Next week is the army of the kingdom. So you're going to see the people who fought along with the king and how they felt about themselves. But what did he say? Once he conquered Egypt, if you see the Egypt, I don't know if you can see my, you can't see it, but it's okay. Egypt, if you see the map, he went from Egypt down to Sudan, down to Uganda, down to Rwanda, down to Tanzania, almost all the way to Zimbabwe. That's the land that he ruled. And he went up to Egypt to say, look, I didn't take this over to stay here. I'm going back to my house where I live, in my kingdom where I live. I just want y'all to get back to worshiping God and the Maya. That's all I wanted. I don't want to sit down and subject you to anything less than me. I don't want you as a slave or no. I just want you to serve God. That's way before the invasion of European muscle. When the Europeans actually take over, and it's maybe years go down the road, another 100 years or so will go down the road where the 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 Romans and Palestinians come into Egypt to take over the trade, and the people of Kush actually are tired of always going to war and said, well, let's just let them come and hang out. That was the incorrect thing to do. That was being a little bit too communal. And that was the demise. And we'll get to that as that comes. But that was the demise of the greatness of Africa. When the foreign invaders were allowed in and settled, and then their mindset began to poison the spirituality of the people that stretched from Egypt all the way down to the bottom of the map. 8,000 miles of land. They wanted to control all of it because it was even now, when you look at it today, we're looking at African history, but we're going to be talking about African reality. Every European country still has their hands in the cookie jar of Africa because that whole land is full of resources. One love, Moyo. I see you. Mother Bev. How you doing, Elder Bev? One love. Thank you for tuning in. Um, this is important for us as to let our kids know, and kids, if you're watching, for you to know how great you are and how great your people are, and the fact that you are the prayers and the blessings that people have prayed for to get us back to being a strong community. And with that, I say, let the African in you rise. And I hope I get to see you during the African spirituality session. One love.